we're going to start here. This is the Oz report for September 27th, 2025. Let's start with the market dashboard. What we see immediately here is that raw materials have dropped 3% overall, which is overall quite a lot from 1 week to another. And that's why we're seeing a lot of red numbers here in the raw materials section. For one, moon materials this week, almost across the board, with the exception of our moon materials that were already very cheap, have dropped between 3 and 5%. Even minerals overall have dropped 2%. Well, we can look at some details on that in a bit here. Salvage again this week down 7% and down 3%. So these have been erratic, absolutely. And in the last weeks, we've seen a few weeks where this went up, but overall, salvage continues to be extremely cheap because of the increase in the number of exploration sites that are out there. So, I personally don't think it's a great place to be in right now, but it's something that we've discussed during the longer stream. I would prefer exploration to stay a little bit more in the exploration spirit, where sites aren't just literally everywhere, but it's something that we're discussing with CCP on the CSM. Let's see what happens there. Ice products pretty much unchanged, but advanced moon materials down 3%, as you would expect from all of the other moon materials, down a little bit as well. Colony reagents continuing to drop. They had this is mainly magmatic gas, the stuff that you use for Metanox moon drills. It had a short hurrah. If we go into the let's actually have a check here in the client and look at the magmatic gas. It had a short bounce here, and it has now just slowed down a little bit. But you can see that for magmatic gas, it's still overall relatively cheap. Overall, it's not. It hasn't recovered significantly. It's just a little bit of an uptick. Again, we discussed this last week, mostly because Metanox moon drills now need more of it. Overall, I still think the stockpiles must be huge of it out there. So we'll see where that market goes. The two big ones are ancient salvage is still going up a little bit. This is in connection with fullerenes as well, going down 11%. So what we've seen in the last 3 or so weeks since the September 9th patch or so, we've seen a significant impact on the tactical destroyers. So T3Ds, or tactical destroyers, namely the Hecate, the Jackdaw, the Swivel, and the Confessor, they're now allowed into the main bank room of the ESSs. And ever since then, on almost all of them, the Jackdaw was already very popular and it wasn't buffed, so that one stayed fairly steady. But almost all of them have just increased. So let's see here if I can show this in the client. So you can see this quite significantly. September 9th patch, Hecate here up in price from sub 70 million to over 80 million. Jackdaw a little bit, but mostly the Swivel a lot, and the Confessor a lot as well. Those two got buffed on top of that as well. So in the end, that has not only increased the price of these, which again it will come down. I never get tired of saying this, but the popularity of one ship is never going to, in the long run, increase its price. It always depends on the raw materials. And if we look at what these are made of, you can see right here the Eve cookbook bill of material for a Confessor. Half of it is neurovisual input matrix, so that's ancient salvage materials, and the rest is fullerenes, so wormhole gas. And so if we knowing that and knowing the popularity of those, we can look at ancient salvage materials. Those were up 2%, but if we look at it in detail, you can see those neurovisual input matrices that are half of these T3Ds, bill of material, they are almost gone from the market. There's less than half a trade day left in the market. And so that is the effect that one of these patches can have. So a group of ships gets very, very popular, and its main raw material gets sold out of the market. And then the question is this going to have a long-term impact? Because that's the only way it's going to keep the prices for T3s up there, or is this a short-term availability impact? And to me, this is probably somewhere in the middle, but most of it, I think, is just going to be absorbed by the market. This is a short-term availability issue that we're having here, but in the long term, there's still enough sites out there that are going to drop these. And if these rise in price significantly, people are going to go out there and just farm these more and get them. So I don't think in the long run this is going to stay where it is, and the prices of T3Ds, they're going to come back down, because you can already see the effect here on the fullerene. So if you look at what's trending down this week, you see fullerite C540, C32, and C84, which, remember, are some of the big impacts here, the big materials on the bill of material of a T3D. Those are already coming down in price, and that is going to be similar for the neurovisual input matrix. Like, these are short-term impacts of patches that are not going to have massive long-term impacts. They're just going to take a few weeks to shake out, a little bit of production change, a little bit of farming change, and on what people are doing out there, and this should go back to normal. Interestingly, this week again, on the trending downside, again a bunch of salvage. So Lawrence fluid down 28%, trigger units down 16%, conductive polymers down 15%, and contaminated Lawrence fluid also down 15%. That is massive, and that is still an effect of the crazy over availability of exploration sites in Null. And if that doesn't get changed back, this is going to continue to slide. And yes, we have seen this come up in the last few weeks. This every once in a while, people go into crazy buying mode because they want to secure long-term price stability for their salvage materials. So we do have a lot of people coming in and buying large quantities and stabilizing the price, but we still have weeks where this is dropping like crazy. So exploration, the profitability of exploration is hurting a lot by the over availability of these sites. So I think in the long term, it's probably not a great idea. So what we're saying, what we're seeing in other parts here of the dashboard is we're seeing the Balgorn here and the Deluge both have had 60 to 70% of their supply bought out. So the Balgorn, I think on Zkill, I think I have this up still. This is Zkill look on Balgorn, so you can see who's losing Balgorns here. The initiative is, and who's killing with it. It's the initiative. So shout out there. Apparently, they are not only producing but buying a lot of Balgorns out there. And I think what we're seeing on the other side is, let me see. We had this has actually changed. The Raven, for example, still very, very, very high volume. We saw this earlier on the Oz dashboard here. Let's see. We saw the Guristas, where the Guristas net resonators here, high trade volume. So somebody's buying up a lot of Guristas net resonators. So I don't know if the combination of Guristas net resonators and Ravens being bought just means that people are building rattlesnakes, but we have seen a lot of those out there as well. So, a bit connecting of the dots, that's for sure. One other thing that we are seeing on here is the abyssal materials. So we're looking at 0-point condensate and crystalline isotope 10, both on the list of very short supply items, less than 1 trade day. And if we're looking at what's out there being traded, I think the Kikimora is a big one. The Kikimora is it doesn't make this list, but it is being traded a lot above average right now. And then we still have the Barbaroga in there. It's less reliant on these abyssal materials and much more on the 0-point field manipulators. But still, still not running enough. Still not running enough abyssals apparently to supply the market for the thirst of abyssal ships and Edencombe ships. And by the way, here, if you're looking at the largest drop in supply, it's not just the Balgon, but it's also, again, the neurovisual input matrix. So people this week saved up or made sure that they keep that they will be continuing to be able to build ships like the tactical destroyers down the line. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether we can resupply the market with these neurovisual input matrices. I don't think their price has necessarily spiked like crazy. I can go have a look here. They're right here. Price has risen, but it's not crazy yet, right? But this is an item that is ready to spike because availability is not given anymore. So unless somebody comes in to supply, this might spike. And if it does, then be ready for T3Ds to have a temporary spike as well. So again, 50% of them depends on this one item, and we'll see what happens in there. All right. Today was a very, very late Oz report because we did it at the end of the show, and we already had a 2+ hour show before this because we had some interesting guests and some topics to talk about. And so I'm going to cut it short today. That's it. I'm also slowly losing my voice. So, remember, it's also CSM campaign season. So make sure you go out there and you have a look at who's running. I am running. So if you like what I've been doing for the last 2 years or want to support me, then I will appreciate your vote at the middle of October. All right. We're going to wrap up the Oz report.